Hello, this is Charlene. We are going to find the domain and the range of these points right here. And we see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 distinct points. When we can count our points of a relation, that is called a discrete relation. It means it's countable points. It's not a line, it's not a curve, it's not a circle, it's just individual points. That is discrete. So anyway, let's go about thinking about the domain. The domain values have to do with the x-axis. And if the domain has to do with the x-axis, that means they want x values. So we're going to look at this one point over here. This one point right over here, actually, if we want to tell what its coordinates are, it's going to be at -6, -6. That's going to be the x value. And its y value is going to be at -5. So -5. That is the y value. But the domain only cares about the x value. We only care about this x value for the domain. So that actually would be the very first point that we would list for our domain. It's going to be a -6. Okay, but we can also think about this in terms of what does this point line up with on the x-axis. There's the x-axis. Well, it lines up with the -6. We can go, and we need to look from left to right. We read English sentences from left to right. We also need to consider this from left to right. So the next point from left to right is this point right here. Well, what does it line up with on the x-axis? It lines up with the -2. So that literally could be our next domain value, the next x value that is represented, -2. Okay, so let's look at the third point here. From left to right, we go to this point, and what does that line up with? Well, that lines up with the 0. So we're going to put a 0 as our next x value, which is part of the domain. We look at the next x value, next point is going to be this little point right here, and it lines up with 3 on the x-axis. So like I said, we continue to move from left to right, and now we have a 3 as part of our domain. It's represented by the points. And our final point is right here. Well, what does it line up with on the x-axis? It lines up with the 4. So that is going to be our final domain value, which represents all the x values represented by our points. Okay, so let's think about now the range. Our range values are talking about the y-axis, and the y-axis is talking about the y values. Okay, so again, going back to our very first point over here, we have -5 was the y value for our first point, starting at the left and going to the right. So that means that that is literally our first range value, -5. Okay, but this one, instead of looking at the x-axis, we need to look at the y-axis. Let's see, let's find a different color here. This one. Okay, so let's go see. This point lines up with what on the y-axis? -5. And see, that makes sense. -5 lines up with -5. Okay, but in the same way that we go from left to right, we need to think that we are actually going also from left to right. We're going from negative numbers to positive numbers. So the y values are going to start at the negative values at the bottom, and they're going to move in an upward movement, negative, and they're going to go toward the positive numbers. So this is not a left to right issue, but it is a bottom to top issue. And that looks terrible, right? Let's make that S a little bit better there. Yeah, negative to positive numbers. So we're going to go from bottom to top. So what's interesting is that we also have this point over here that's at the bottom, and it also lines up with that -5. Now, do we need to write the -5 over here twice? No, we do not. If two points line up with the same -5 y value, we only need to write -5 one time. But let's keep going up a little bit, and we go up a little bit, and we see that we have points right here. These points, we have two of them. Again, 2 points that are lining up with the same exact y value. That y value is at -3. So that will be our next range value, -3. Okay, so let's go up just a little bit more, and we see that the next point is right there. So that point is right here, and what does it line up with on the y-axis? It lines up with -1. So we are going to list that as -1, and that will be our final, because we have no more points up here at the top of the graph. We only have points at this row, and this row. So we only have 3 range values because we do not need to list duplicates. So this is the final answer for our domain values, which are the x values represented by the points, and these are my range values, which represent the y values of my distinct points. The distinct points are known as the discrete relation. Okay, hopefully that helps you think through the process. Click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, and we'll see you back soon.